Jackie Reynolds, the CEO of one of the most influential financial firms in the country, stood before the full-length mirror in her lavish penthouse apartment. Clad in a simple blouse and a pair of well-worn jeans, she barely resembled the powerful executive whose name carried immense weight in the corporate world. And that was exactly her intention. Jackie had spent years tirelessly building her company from the ground up, shattering barriers and proving herself in an industry long dominated by men. As a Black woman, she had overcome obstacles most could never imagine, yet even with all her success, she remained acutely aware of the struggles faced by people who looked like her, especially in the banking world. She had heard countless horror stories of discrimination, seen the disturbing statistics, and read the reports. But numbers on a page weren't enough. She needed to see the truth with her own eyes, to experience firsthand what so many others had endured. Her plan was straightforward. Walk into one of her own bank's branches, posing as an everyday customer, and attempt a routine withdrawal. No boardroom discussions, no corporate titles, just her, stripped of status, stepping into the reality many faced daily. What would happen? She didn't know for sure, but deep in her gut, she feared she already had the answer. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" her assistant Monica asked with a worried expression as Jackie reached for her purse. Jackie didn't hesitate. "Positive," she affirmed, her voice steady. "If there's a problem, I need to witness it myself." Monica let out a sigh, her concern evident. "Just be careful. If anything happens, call me immediately." Jackie gave a small nod before drawing in a deep breath. Then, with determination in her step, she exited the apartment. Normally, a private driver would be waiting to escort her wherever she needed to go, but not today. Today, every detail had to be authentic. Instead of the usual luxury service, she opted for a rideshare, blending into the everyday hustle of the city. As she settled into the back seat of the car, her mind raced. Would they treat her like any other customer? Or would she, despite her wealth and status, experience the very bias she had fought so hard against for years? Her heartbeat quickened as the car weaved through the streets, the towering buildings casting long shadows as they approached the bank. The moment she stepped through the gleaming glass doors, she adjusted the cap of her hoodie and took in her surroundings. It was surreal, walking into an institution she had built, but today, she wasn't its CEO. She was just another customer. The bank's interior was sleek and modern, polished marble floors reflecting the overhead lights. Stylish furniture adorned the waiting area, and large posters with bold, uplifting slogans about inclusivity and customer-first service lined the walls. Jackie recognized them all. After all, she had personally signed off on those marketing campaigns. But as she moved toward the teller line, a sinking feeling set in. The promises on those posters, did they truly reflect the experience of every customer who walked through these doors? A tall man in an expensive business suit stepped up to one of the tellers. Immediately, he was greeted with a warm smile and an enthusiastic, "Good morning, sir. How can I assist you today?" The teller's tone was cheerful, almost overly accommodating. Jackie, however, received no such welcome. No smiles. No polite greeting. She simply stood there unnoticed, as the line slowly inched forward. Even as customers arrived after her, she remained invisible, her presence seemingly insignificant. Finally, it was her turn. She stepped up to the counter, offering a polite nod to the young bank teller whose name tag read Laura. Laura barely glanced up. "Yes," she said curtly, her voice void of warmth. Jackie cleared her throat. "I'd like to make a withdrawal, please." Laura cast a quick, scrutinizing glance at her before responding. "Do you have an account here?" Jackie nodded, already reaching into her bag. "Yes, I do." She retrieved her ID and bank card, placing them on the counter. Laura took them without a word, her fingers moving across the keyboard as she typed in Jackie's information. As the screen refreshed, a frown settled onto her face. An awkward silence stretched between them before Laura finally spoke again. "I'll need further verification," she stated, her tone edged with skepticism. "Large withdrawals require special clearance." Jackie raised an eyebrow. instantly sensing something was off. She wasn't withdrawing an excessive amount, nothing that should require extra verification. "All right," she said, keeping her voice calm. "What kind of verification do you need?" Laura's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'll need to get my manager." Jackie crossed her arms, her curiosity piqued. This should be interesting. She watched as Laura quickly walked toward the manager's office, her posture tense. Something about her movements suggested hesitation, discomfort, perhaps even reluctance. The young teller leaned in, whispering to a man in a navy blue suit. Jackie observed as he lifted a brow in response before exhaling sharply and rising from his desk. As soon as he stepped into view, Jackie recognized him instantly. Jason Miller, the branch manager. She had personally approved his hiring 2 years ago, impressed by his leadership and extensive experience. But now, standing on the other side of the counter, seeing him in this setting, she felt something shift uneasily in her chest. Jason approached, offering a tight-lipped smile, the kind that lacked sincerity. "I'm Jason, the branch manager. I understand you're requesting a withdrawal." Jackie nodded, her expression neutral. "That's correct. Is there a problem?" Jason barely glanced at the ID and bank card in Laura's hands before dismissively sliding them back across the counter. "For withdrawals of this size, we need to be extra cautious," he said smoothly. "It's standard protocol." Jackie leaned in slightly, meeting his gaze. "Standard protocol? I've been banking here for years. This amount isn't exactly." Jason's already tight smile seemed to strain further, his jaw visibly tensing. "Even so, we have to be thorough," he said, his voice measured but firm. "We've had some fraud cases recently, and we need to be extra cautious." Jackie didn't so much as blink. That was a lie. And not just any lie, a blatant one. Her bank had some of the lowest fraud rates in the entire state, thanks to the very security protocols she had personally implemented. If fraud was an issue, she would have known about it before anyone else. Yet here she was, standing on the other side of the counter, being subjected to scrutiny she knew for a fact wasn't standard procedure. Still, she kept her composure. "So," she said evenly, "what's the next step?" Jason exhaled, shifting his weight slightly, as if entertaining the idea of doing her a favor. "I'll need another form of identification," he said, feigning professionalism. "Maybe a utility bill, or a second ID." Jackie's expression remained unreadable, but inside, her patience was thinning. This wasn't protocol. This was discrimination. And she had just about had enough of it. Her voice was cool when she finally spoke. "Tell me, Mr. Miller," she said, her tone deliberate, "would you have asked the man before me for the same thing?" The tension in the air thickened. Jason hesitated, just for a second, but long enough to confirm what Jackie already knew. "I just want to make sure everything is in order," he finally said, though his words lacked conviction. Jackie tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Let's see how far you're willing to take this." With a smooth, measured motion, she reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a second form of identification, her passport. She slid it across the counter, her movements deliberate, eyes locked onto Jason's face, reading every flicker of hesitation. He picked it up, fingers drumming lightly against the smooth surface as he examined it. Jackie could see the flicker of doubt in his expression, the unmistakable realization that he had expected an excuse to deny her, not a valid ID. Behind the counter, Laura, the young teller, fidgeted uncomfortably. Her gaze darted between Jackie and Jason, sensing the shift in atmosphere, but choosing to remain silent. The moment stretched, just a second too long, before Jason finally cleared his throat. "Well, I appreciate your cooperation," he said, forcing a smile that barely masked his discomfort. "I'll just need to verify a few things." Jackie's eyebrow arched. "I thought that's what you were doing already." Jason didn't respond. Instead, without another word, he turned on his heel and walked toward his office, leaving Jackie standing at the counter, her patience wearing thinner by the second. The air around her felt heavier, charged with unspoken tension. She could feel the weight of other customers' gazes, some trying to pretend they weren't watching, while others observed with open curiosity, or worse, quiet discomfort. The kind of discomfort that came when people knew something wasn't right but chose to stay silent. Minutes passed. Then, finally, Jason returned. His expression was unreadable, his posture stiff. He set the passport and bank card down on the counter in front of her. "Unfortunately," he said, his voice carefully neutral, "I still can't process this transaction at the moment." Jackie's eyes narrowed. "Here we go." "And why is that?" she asked, her voice dangerously calm. Jason let out a sigh, as if he were the one being inconvenienced. "It's just bank policy. I can't disclose details, but we have to be extra cautious with large withdrawals." Then, as if offering her a solution, he added, "You're welcome to try another branch." Jackie inhaled slowly. He was doubling down. This wasn't just about denying her service. This was about dismissing her entirely, quietly pushing her out, as if she didn't belong. Her gaze flicked to Laura, the teller, whose discomfort was now unmistakable. The young woman refused to meet her eyes, instead focusing on shuffling some papers in front of her, as if pretending she wasn't part of this. Jackie smiled then, but there was no warmth in it. "Enough." She leaned in slightly, voice low but unwavering. "You do realize," she said, "that I have full access to my account." She let the words sink in before continuing, "And if I don't get my money today, there will be consequences." For the briefest moment, Jason's mask slipped. His face faltered, just a flicker of unease before he caught himself and forced indifference back into his expression. "I'm just following policy, ma'am," he said stiffly. Jackie didn't break eye contact. "Then I suggest you call whoever you need to," she said, her voice sharpening, "because I'm not leaving without my money." Jason hesitated. He hadn't expected this level of resistance. Jackie, however, was just getting started. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and, without hesitation, began dialing. Jason and Laura exchanged quick, nervous glances as she held the phone to her ear, her posture calm, unshaken. She wasn't bluffing. The call connected. Jackie's voice was crisp and clear. "Hello, this is Jacqueline Reynolds," she said. "I need to speak with the regional director immediately." Jason stiffened. His eyes darted toward Laura, who looked just as rattled. A voice came through the line almost instantly. "Of course, Ms. Reynolds," the person on the other end said. "I'll connect you now." Jason's confidence wavered. His carefully constructed facade of authority cracked. He had assumed she was just another difficult customer, someone he could quietly dismiss. But the way she carried herself, the way she spoke with such certainty and control, it unsettled him. Jackie glanced at him then, her lips curling into a knowing smirk as she waited. Moments later, a new voice came through the phone. "Ms. Reynolds, what can I do for you?" Jackie's voice remained steady, casual even, yet firm. "Hello, Charles," she said. "I'm at one of our branches right now, and I seem to be having trouble accessing my own money." Jason's face drained of all color. "Our branches." There was a pause on the line before Charles spoke again, his tone shifting. "Which branch are you at?" Jackie didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned her gaze toward Jason, watching as the weight of his mistake settled on his shoulders. "The Oak Ridge branch," she finally said. "Your branch manager, Jason, is refusing to process my transaction, despite me providing 2 forms of identification." Silence. Then Charles spoke, his voice smooth but edged with steel. "That's unacceptable. Let me put you on hold while I handle this." Jason swallowed hard. He knew exactly what was coming. Behind the counter, Laura's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the stack of papers in front of her, still avoiding Jackie's gaze. Jackie crossed her arms, watching Jason with quiet amusement. Moments later, the call ended, and almost immediately, Jason's office phone rang. He flinched. Then, scrambling, he answered. "This is Jason speaking." His voice was unsteady. Whatever Charles was saying on the other end wasn't good. Jackie leaned casually against the counter, tapping her manicured nails against the surface, watching as Jason's face grew paler with every passing second. "Yes, sir," Jason stammered. "I understand. No, sir. I wasn't aware." His voice trailed off. He was aware now. And Jackie?